state of Illinois has to reply to the Southern District of Illinois federal judge saying the gun ban is unconstitutional by Wednesday. Good morning, I'm Greg Bishop. It is Illinois in Focus Daily, and we've been focusing on what's going on in the courts because there's a ton going on. Previous segment, we talked about the federal government suing the state of Illinois over immigration policy, including the E-Verify program for verifying a employee's status if they can actually work in the country legally. Then we're looking at now the people suing the state of Illinois in federal court. And in particular, we've been tracking this case from day one, even before day one, the ban on 170 plus semi-automatic firearms, rifles, shotguns, handguns, and a prohibition on the purchasing and possession of what the state calls expanded magazines. Some people say that they're standard magazines, but anything over 15 for handguns and anything over 10 for rifles. So those are banned. January of 2023 is when they enacted this. If you recall, I believe the original bill started out as a piece of insurance legislation. Well, in lame duck session, they gutted that, replaced it, and made a ban on semi-automatic firearms and magazines. And then a week later, the lawsuits trickled in. State lawsuits went all the way up to the Illinois Supreme Court, and there was a lot of controversy about two of those justices on the Illinois Supreme Court getting $1 million each from Governor J.B. Pritzker and hundreds of thousands of dollars each from the likes of Illinois House Speaker Chris Welch and Senate President Don Harmon, and they did not recuse themselves in that case despite there being an official motion for them to do so. So that's been put to rest, the state level challenge. But the federal level challenges in the Southern District of Illinois, you've got the case of Barnett et al., and that is 4 different groups that are suing the state of Illinois over this policy. Now, in 2023, I know it's here we are, it's April, or it's already May 5th. It's May 5th of 2025. Happy Cinco de Mayo. But with January 23, this passing being enacted, federal lawsuits filed, all of 2023 was on preliminary grounds. The plaintiffs were trying to have an initial overturning of the law so that they could then have the merits dealt with. But that preliminary injunction request, while it was granted, I believe, my memory serves me correct, by the district judge, it went up to the appeals court, which reversed that, and then held that military grade firearms are too similar to consumer grade firearms. Now go to the merits of the case. So the case even went up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and Justice Clarence Thomas said, this isn't ripe yet. We need this to be done on the merits. So it went back to the district court, and the district court took that case up, and then ultimately had a 4-day bench trial with a ton of information. I mean, listen, I know about firearms. I know about the Second Amendment and the history of the Second Amendment, but I've never seen a deep dive like this. 4 days worth of experts talking about the difference between military grade and consumer firearms, the history of semi-automatic and full auto firearms in the military, the use of full auto in the military and how that differs from semi-auto, and they have different uses, suppression fire and such, and just pretty incredible. All of the record that was developed in the Southern District case. And that's what I think might actually propel this case to go to the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, here we're waiting just a few more minutes before the U.S. Supreme Court releases their order list. And we'll be checking on that here live with Illinois in Focus, because we're going to see if the U.S. Supreme Court is going to take the Maryland assault weapons ban, known as SNOPE. So we'll look at that particular case to see if that's brought up. But if that doesn't get brought up, because it's going to be like the 10th or 11th week that this case has been in conference with the U.S. Supreme Court, and they haven't decided whether they're going to take the case. Will Illinois' case, which has a pretty strong record in the district courts, now in the appeals court, actually go up? So we'll be watching that. But the states did, they've got to file by Wednesday this week their response to the district judge. So that's coming up. Again, Illinois State Police, the Attorney General, Governor Pritzker, they have to file their briefs to the court by Wednesday. And then June 6th, the plaintiffs get to reply. All right. And then June 27th, the state then gets to reply to the plaintiffs. So we're coming up here. All right, that's going to be rapidly moving, and we'll be talking about this case again very soon. But you also have a separate case that had filings on Friday, and that deals with the prohibition of concealed carry on mass transit and the Benjamin Schoenthal case. There are other plaintiffs in that, but that case has advanced forward. They've got arguments set in that case for May 28th in the appeals courts. This after you had the district federal judge say that the law is unconstitutional, but only for the plaintiffs. It wasn't a wide, universal, the law is unconstitutional, only for the plaintiffs in this case while they deal with the appeal. But that had some back and forth as well, rather interesting in the federal district courts, with the judge granting an injunction for the plaintiffs, and then the state came back and said, well, 3 days after the judge granted that injunction, 3 people were killed on a Chicago train, and the judge brought those attorneys into the court and chastised them for that assertion that the judge, in his action, finding something unconstitutional for the plaintiffs, led to somebody being murdered on a public transit. I mean, the questioning there in that courtroom was rather fascinating. The judge is like, did that individual have a FOID card that committed that crime? So, that line of questioning and did the judge murder those people? It was pretty intense to listen in on that. If you search our archives at the Center Square, you'll be able to find that story. All right, so we'll take a look here briefly at the reply that the state has in just a moment here. We'll look at the table of contents, but I do want to pull up the U.S. Supreme Court order list. We're waiting for that to come up, and here we go. Order lists from the U.S. Supreme Court. We'll just do a search for Snope. It's not there. As you can hear, I'm doing a Control F, S-N-O-P-E, nada. No Snope. What about Ocean? No Ocean. That's another case that people in the Second Amendment space are anxiously waiting for. So no update on Snope. Could that mean Illinois' case, which, again, has a very strong record challenging the gun ban in the state of Illinois, can that be the case that ultimately goes to the U.S. Supreme Court? We're going to have briefs filed this week, briefs filed the following month, and so on. So maybe it is going to be a 2026 case that Illinois' case goes in front of the Supreme Court. We'll see. But back to the Schoenthal case, the ban on concealed carry on mass transit. This is what the state's telling the appeals courts about their position as, again, the judge in the district level, not the appeals level, the district level. In the district level, the judge sided with the plaintiffs in this case, saying that, you can't prohibit people from carrying on mass transit. In the case of just those plaintiffs, I want to make sure I'm clear on that. But here are the responses from the states to that district judge in the appeals courts. We're looking at the table of contents. I will say, one thing I like about the state's legal briefs, the table of contents can really give you a great overview of what they're talking about, and they do a good job of that. So their arguments are the public transit's restriction is consistent with the nation's historical tradition of regulating firearms on passenger railroads. So we'll see where they go with that in the oral arguments. The nation has a well-established historical tradition of prohibiting firearms in crowded spaces, they say. Plaintiffs' methodological criticisms of a couple of cases are meritless. Plaintiffs' objections to specific analogs do not undermine the existence of a relevant historical tradition. Historical laws require carriage at certain public assemblies, do not change the analysis. They also say that the public transit's restriction is relatively similar to historical firearm restrictions on passenger railroads. Passenger railroad firearm regulations are valid historical analogs. Under Bruin, the public transit restriction is consistent with passenger railroad firearm regulations and how and why it restricts the right to armed self-defense. Restricting the right to armed self-defense. The public transit restriction is consistent with the nation's historical tradition of regulating firearms in sensitive places, and plaintiffs' proposed sensitive places standard ignores precedents, history, and common sense. And they say that the plaintiffs' other arguments lack merit. So the states, again, in their filing that was made Friday, those are the arguments that you can expect to hear whenever they go to oral arguments in May. So let me pull that date back up. That the Schoenthal case is going to be in front of the appeals court here in Illinois, challenging the prohibition of concealed carry on mass transit. May 28th, that's going to be at the federal court building in Chicago, and the 7th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals streams their oral arguments, so you'll be able to listen to that live. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, keeping you plugged in of what's going on here each and every weekday morning. You can wake up with us, or you can get the podcast where you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus. You'll find it. Get the newsletter at thecentersquare.com. It's real easy. All you got to do is go to the website, thecentersquare.com, click on newsletter, and you'll see where you can sign up for different topics and even different states, including Illinois. So just click that and you will get a email in your inbox every morning with the latest headlines. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us here with Illinois in Focus Daily.